Right then, everybody. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear me. So let me know if you can. There's a few people already arrived. There is David Schultz. Hello. Lofty, last of the famous international playboys. John Nolan, Al McCall, Neil Desperandum, Legend Real, and 30 RTR30. So welcome all of you. Confirm. Could you please confirm you can hear me? Because I'll go to the. Why not just go and play? Go and play it, shouldn't I? Yeah. Let's have a look. What thing's going anyway? Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, it's working. Good. Oh, hello. Thanks, nothing as it seems. How'd you do? Thanks, Neil. Thank you very much. Greetings, all of you. Welcome to the Roswell Trilogy Readers Q&A. That's right, where you, the readers of the Roswell Trilogy, and that's the first Roswell Trilogy book there, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, will get the chance to ask me, the author, questions about it. Hello, Jack. Jack Daniels. Greetings. Can I have a glass of you, please, with ice? Right. Welcome, Neil. Thanks, Neil. Right. And David Schultz has turned up from Maine on the other side of the pond. How are you? Great. That's brilliant, guys. So, hello, Simon. Simon Tucker. Crafty Nihilist. So that's two extra people. The Crafty Nihilist just joined, which is really, really good. So welcome, all of you. Welcome. It's really good you're here. Yes, this is an event which is a bit like it's a bit like one of those things where you get in bookshops. You know, you go past a bookshop and there's a kind of there's like a sandwich board outside where it says on chalk or something sort of going, you take questions, things like that. It's a bit like that. Of course, now I can't really hold one of those events at the bookshop because they're far too expensive. This is kind of the online equivalent of that, without the sort of like the nibbles and the glasses of wine, although you can have those if you want, of course. Hello, Simon. Oh, hello, Simon Tucker. Nice to see you. Now, Steve071 can't meet. He's going to be here, but he can't be here till 9 p.m. unfortunately. So I've got you guys here already. Last the famous international playboys. That's a song by Morrissey, isn't it? I'm showing my age now, aren't I? Yeah. Oh, have you heard? He's gone on PC, Morrissey. Yeah, he's been cancelled. Oh. Yes, he's a bit based. Oh, so welcome all of you. Thanks for joining me. Now, what the plan tonight is, I've got some emails. Some people sent me in questions by emails. I'm going to go through those. While I'm going through those, don't post me any questions in the chat, because at the end of after I've been through those. Oh right. I'll make one. Crafty Nihilist is, you spoke too soon, Crafty Nihilist. But I'll make a note of your question because it's so good, and it's such a good question that it's worth adding to the email list. I love it. Right, where are we? Okay, I'll add it to the email list. All right, there we go. Oh, well, thank you very much, Crafty Nihilist, for that. Oops, hang on. Let's just make that a bit bigger. Oh, come on. Hang on. There we are. But that's a great question. It really is. It really is. Hello, Galaxian. Yeah, I thought it was a song, Lofty. Yeah. I can't remember it, but I remember Morrissey from way back, before he became infamous. He used to be sort of the opposite, famous, as Alan Partridge would say. Yeah. So what I do is because what the end of when I've gone through the email questions, all I will do is I'll go and I'll just de-troll. So that's all I'll do. I'll just go through the questions. I'll just go through the comments that people have posted, and I will get rid of the trolls. And then I'll start answering questions. I'll answering questions from the chat box. Okay, hope that's clear. So yeah, this is something I thought would encourage people to sort of like get involved in the book and enjoy the book if you haven't already. It's just it's one of these things that, like I said, authors sometimes do. The Roswell Trilogy. That's the first one. I've got two more, but they wouldn't roll on this stand thing for all three of them, and I didn't want them falling off and getting getting dog-eared and dented, because then I wouldn't be able to sell them at full price. So I've simply decided to put the first one up there. But you've got to read the first one first. Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, is the first one. Now, this is a book that I wrote after I'd listened to. It was actually Steve Bassett who gave me the idea. I was listening to an interview with him, and he said, what it would be like, he said, just imagine going back to 1947 and changing things so that we didn't have the truth embargo. And instead of the truth, we saw the lies, the cover-up, and the weather balloons and the dummies and things like that. We got the truth. What would be different? I'd love to just go back and then rewrite the entire history of the 21st century here. And he says, I'll never write that book, but I hope someone else does. And I think he might have been referring to Bryce Zabel, because I know Bryce Zabel is writing a book on this as well. And he hasn't. I'm a bit disappointed he hasn't brought it out yet, but he's doing one too. And so, well, as soon as I heard this, I thought, why don't I do that? Because I'm a fiction writer. I've written 2 novels before. I've written a number of short stories. So I wrote to Steve and I said, Steve, I'll write that book for you. I'll write it for you. And he said, yeah, good idea. He was very encouraging. So I went ahead, and Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, was the result. And even before I finished this book, I realized there was scope for a sequel. I thought, so I left it slightly open-ended. I sort of rounded it off at the end so that it's sort of finished. But then I suddenly realized there's room for a sequel. Either that, or I could carry on and make it much longer, which I didn't want to do. Because it's kind of like a never-ending story in a way, so I could kind of like continue it really indefinitely. Although there is a limit, I think, in terms of simply imaginative ability, which I'll come to later on, because that comes up in one of the email questions I've had. But I did go on and I wrote a second part of it called Roswell Revealed, A World After Disclosure, which is a sequel to Roswell Rising. It's a sequel to this. And then as I got to I was originally not planning to make it a trilogy. I was going to write the sequel and leave it at that. And indeed, if you've read the novels, you'll know that the Roswell Revealed, it would be easy to finish it at Roswell Revealed, actually, and do no more. It would have been easy just to leave it at the end of that. But I did suddenly think, well, is there anything I can add to this? Can I put in a third part? Because, of course, Roswell Revealed ends with a quite decisive change. I mean, as I say quite openly in the blurb to Roswell Redeemed, the third part of the trilogy, Roswell Redeemed is set in the complete post-disclosure world. So in a sense, the disclosure process is complete by the time Roswell Redeemed begins. And then before long, I realized I actually did have some ideas in my head that would fill up an entire novel. So I thought, what the hell? Let's do a third one. Let's make it a trilogy. And I did. And that came out in December 2018. So that's what we're talking. That's what this is about. Now, I should actually mention quickly. Let's see if anyone else has turned up. Galaxian is here. Hello. So is Huge Arsehole. Hello, Huge Arsehole. And who else is here? Get a green screen. Oh yeah, Galaxian saying I should do what Miles Johnson does and have like a big chroma key thing behind me so I could put all kinds of pictures on it. That's not an idea, actually. I was thinking where I could hang it from. I could probably hang it from somewhere. It's not a bad idea, actually. In fact, when I was on the Raconta's News the other day, they said, "Hey Ben, have you got a green screen? Because we'll send you some things to put on it." And I didn't, but. Now, you may be wondering, Ben, are you going to go for 3 hours tonight, Ben? You're going to go for 3 hours? No, I'm not. In fact, really, this can't be really any longer than about 2.5 hours, because 10 p.m. I'm on the Kev Baker Show. Yes, it's going to be a busy evening for me, non-stop broadcasting till midnight. So I'll sort of end this around about the 2.5 hour mark, because I need to have a little bit of a break before I go on with Kev. So really, if we don't complete it, then I'll do another one, all right? Because, I mean, some of you might want to carry on, or you might give me some ideas for carrying on. I don't get through all your questions or something. So I will carry on. I'll do a second live stream at some point if it's really necessary. Okay. So with no further, let's get on with it. Thanks for the email questions I've had. First, I'll go through your comments on the notice, first of all. Crafty Niles says, read the trilogy, loved them. Thanks, Niles. I remember I've actually signed your copy, I believe. Al McCall says, Ben, Crashing Ball comments are getting... Well, he hasn't written to me, but he might make an appearance tonight, even though it's about 10 o'clock in the morning where he is. But he might put in an appearance. You never know. I hope he read them. Playboy, Steve mumbling wouldn't. I don't think he would even use them as toilet paper. Now, Playboy also says, Ben, have you seen the film Misery? Is Steve your number one fan? Autograph the 3 books he's got. Steve mumbling is, I think, he's my ultimate kind of hate follow. You know, I think he's it's odd because, you know, if he really if he really finds me that annoying, why don't you just not watch me? But he can't look away. It's like me with Kevin Logan, you know. It's like those 2 old guys in the private box at the Muppet Show, you know. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never go. It's really kind of torture to have to watch the show. Steve-071 won't be back till 9. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a shame about that. And Johnny Smallcock and his vile... The Porter's poet. So thank you for those, Sophie. You may be familiar with Sophie if you watch my Summer Sizzler video and several others. Question 1. What was the process of doing research for the Roswell books? Well, as I've just explained, I've kind of already outlined it in the intro. It was basically an idea that came to me suddenly, just listening to Steve Bassett. And now, it was only after I'd heard Steve Bassett that I realized that Bryce Zabel had a similar idea. And Bryce, unfortunately, hasn't gone through with it. He hasn't written his own version of the alternative and even the same market. Well, I don't think so, because I'm sure there's plenty of room in this market for everyone, actually. And Bryce is also Bryce has very different ideas to me. I've met Bryce, actually, and I've spoken to him. And he sees the world very differently. No doubt his version of the alternate history of Roswell will be different to mine, very different indeed. I look forward to reading. I really do. I don't regard him as a competitor. I really don't. Number 2, having written a trilogy, how did you keep things fresh for both your readers and also yourself? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean that, you know, how am I going to write things fresh now in the future? Because I've started writing another book, another story called The Obscurati Chronicles. Now, this is going to be a novel. I've already I've written all of chapter 1. And if you want to read chapter 1, it's for free online, actually. It just goes to Ben's bookcase. Hapano-bb.blogspot.co.uk. But so you can read the first chapter then. I'm already making good progress with chapter 2. So that's going to be another sort of alternate history story. Although the turning point's going to be further back. It's actually 1918, and I've set it in an imaginary country. It's really good. Number 3, did you find it more challenging to write the first book in the Roswell trilogy or write the subsequent novels? The answer is the first one, Roswell Rising. That was definitely the most difficult. I really reached certain points in the book where I wondered how I was going to complete it. Where was I going to go from there? I've talked about this several times on the Ben's Bookcase blog. I talked about hitting the wall. The wall was a point, and I hit several of them. There was one really big one, which was when Claim was in Ireland. I thought, well, how am I going to move it from there? And there's a couple of others. I actually stopped after about chapter 3. I sort of stopped writing it for a bit, and I thought, well, where am I going to go from here? Things like that. But you know what? The thing to do if you're ever in that situation is put it down for a while, go away. And very often, and just don't think too much about it. It's, well, different authors have different ways of dealing with this, but writing is very much I find very much a subconscious attitude. You can actually let your back burner do most of the work. And indeed, I did come through with an idea in the end, and I could finish the book. The second one, Roswell Revealed and Redeemed, was much easier. They flowed a lot better, and I wrote them within a year. Both of them I wrote within a year. Now, there was a problem with Roswell Redeemed in that I reached a point where I knew I couldn't go any further, and it was basically the end of Roswell Redeemed because I was dealing with a situation where I was trying to do this thing which I describe as effing the ineffable. Now, this is a phrase invented by Dr. Stephen Law, who's a sort of skeptic philosopher type person who lives in Oxford. But now he used it in a completely different context, but I use it to describe an attempt possibly to write about something which I can't possibly write about, simply because there may be certain things that are outside the scope of our current cognition. And it could be that the post-Illuminati world is one of those things, or the post-disclosure world, whichever, which really is the same thing, because disclosure and the New World Order are absolutely antithetical to each other. So, a post-disclosure world is, by definition, a post-Illuminati world. It could be, and I think it is, that any attempt to describe that kind of world in too much detail will be inaccurate. And not only will it be inaccurate, it'll probably be rather false and bland, and a bit fluffy and maybe a bit synthetic. Simply because we will have to actually live in that kind of world to understand it. Because we are so, at the moment, we are literally so ingrained since the Illuminati rose to power at the end of after the fall of Atlantis. We live so much within that world. All of human history has been within that world. That to have that change at such a fundamental level is something people in the world today cannot comprehend. It could simply be that. So I reached a point where I was getting to the end of Roswell Redeemed, and I thought, I can't really go any further with this story. I can't, because it's going to be. It's going into areas which I cannot possibly know, and none of us can know until we actually see it, until it actually happens. And so I just decided I wrote the sort of epilogue scene, which was in Roswell. Roswell Redeemed is set in Roswell itself, which is where it starts, of course, except it's many years later, of course. And I ended it as well as I could. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to have to leave it there. Question number 4. Who is your favorite character in the Roswell trilogy? It's Flying Buffalo. Absolutely, without a doubt, Flying Buffalo. Now, when I first came up with the idea of having Flying Buffalo in it, he appears in the first scene, and I thought to myself, I was writing that first scene, and I came up with the idea of him. I tend to write in a very unplanned way. I won't plot things out to begin with and write loads and little plans and things like that and make sure I know where I'm going before I go there. I know some writers do that. Ayn Rand was famous for it. She wouldn't even start a draft before she knew exactly what the book was going to be like and outlined every single character and everything about it. I don't do that. I'll just pick up a pen and start writing. Philip Pullman. I write much more like Philip Pullman does, because he writes the same way. He wrote the first line of the Northern Lights, which is Lyra and her demon, and things like that. That famous first sentence of Northern Lights. He wrote that just like that, and he didn't know where he was going with it. He didn't plan to turn it into a trilogy of novels, which he did, of course. He went on to write the Subtle Knife, the Amber Spyglass, excellent series of books. Even though Pullman himself is a Ramona twat, but the books are really good. I suddenly realized this guy just appeared in the scene. As I say, these things are very subconscious. I let my subconscious do the work. And when I realized exactly what kind of character he was, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers in this particular video, when I realized exactly what kind of character he was, because if you read the novels, you'll know that Flying Buffalo is very different to the other characters in the book. I thought, there's something a bit dodgy about this. Does this really fit with the kind of story I'm trying to write and the kind of world I'm trying to portray? Because the whole thing would work without him. He's not. I could have left him out, and the story would still have worked. And I did feel there was something a bit dodgy about having this particular character in there. But by the time as these questions were going through my mind, I suddenly realized that I was actually falling in love with this character, and I so much enjoyed writing the scenes with him in. I loved the dialogue that was coming out with him. I loved the way he just comes in and out of the story, and the way he interacts with the other characters is just so good. It's so good. I just couldn't bear to drop him. And I knew that some of the readers would not go with me having that character, and it would really make them cringe. Some readers would go, really would go, ugh, it doesn't fit. But I couldn't give him up. I really couldn't. Next question. Which character in the Roswell trilogy do you most identify with, and why? Well, the answer to that is Brendan Quilly, who's the protagonist of Roswell Redeemed, but only when he's a child. His child, because Redeemed actually begins with him as a child, and for those who know, who've read it, he is the son of Clayne and Gina Quilly, who's actually born during the period of this book, and he is described as a child in Redeemed. His childhood is very much based on my own, the thoughts and feelings that was going through his head, which I can remember. Apart from that, who do I identify with? I don't really identify with any of the characters apart from Brendan, I think, as a child. Next question. If you had to describe the character of Clayne Quilly in 3 words, what would those words be? I think changer of worlds. I think that's changer of worlds. Next question. Can you give us some insight into what makes the character of Siobhan tick? Siobhan, as you can tell, she emulates her father in a way. And she's very close to her father. Like, for example, you may have noticed if in Revealed that Siobhan is the protagonist of Revealed, in the same way that Clayne is the protagonist of Rising. In Revealed, you'll see her career path follows a similar pattern. She starts off as a journalist, and then she becomes basically an exopolitical activist for the rest of her life, for the rest of the period of the Redeemed. And of course, in Redeemed, Revealed. In Redeemed, she becomes a mother. But she starts off as a journalist in Revealed and then becomes an activist. She's motivated, so she loves her father. I think she emulates him. She wants to be like him in many ways because all her parental love is focused on her father, who she absolutely adores. Her father claims her mother. She absolutely hates her mother, has a very difficult relationship with her, and it gets worse over the course of the story of the books. Now, for those of you who've read, in fact, it's very, very close to the beginning of Rising. You'll know the kind of source for this because her mother betrays her and her father very badly. She betrays her father. She betrays Clayne, who is her ex-husband, although they get married again. That's a spoiler. In a really horrible way, and forces her daughter. At the time, Siobhan's a little girl, just 12 years old, forces her to kind of go along with it. And Siobhan never forgives her mother for that betrayal, for that terrible thing that she does. Another thing that motivates Siobhan and makes her tick, certainly in Redeemed, which is the third part where she essentially becomes a mother and a lover, is her relationship with Julian. Julian is her partner, who she has a very passionate relationship with, and who is the father of her twin children, William and Colleen. And yet, of course, in Redeemed, that goes very badly wrong, and she changes quite considerably in Redeemed. She becomes very focused on Julian and trying to repair the relationship she lost with him. Next question. If your Roswell trilogy were made into a movie, who would star in it? All right, a lot of people, this is interesting because I thought a lot about this. Now, and I thought more about it. Now, I said that when I was imagining Clayne Quilly, I sort of based him on a photograph I saw of Miles Johnston when Miles put some photographs up. There was one where he was much younger and he had like red gingery hair, and I kind of based Clayne's appearance on that. Although Clayne himself is not based on Miles. Clayne is a bit like me in a way. He's more impulsive than me, but he has that same kind of sentimentality that I do. Who could play him? I honestly don't know. I just have this vision of him. Now, Gerald Caxton could be played by Roy Hudd. In fact, Roy Hudd often plays bad guys, and he'd be a perfect Gerald Caxton. At least when he was younger. He's quite old now, but in some of the earlier films he was in, Roy Hudd was just a perfect Gerald Caxton. I think he'd be very good. Morgan Freeman could probably do Flying Buffalo quite well. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be as I envisaged him. But Morgan Freeman was in a film. I can't remember what the film was called, but he plays a Red Indian in a movie. I can't remember. I can't remember what the film was called, but he plays a very good Red Indian in this film, and I thought to myself, he could do Flying Buffalo. I often thought, funny thing is, when I was imagining President Taverner, who's a character in Redeemed, I thought of Terry Joyce. As who you know, Terry, if you know Terry Joyce, she does like radio shows, a bit like mine, and YouTube. So just not in terms of her personality, although she has there's certain aspects of Terry I think are rather like Lorraine Taverner. She has the same kind of sort of the humorous side of herself. I think comes out very well in Lorraine Taverner. In fact, I imagined her looking like Terry, but again, this is someone that's only a partial answer. I don't. For me, I don't think Taverner is like Terry Joyce in the sense that she symbolises that person. I mean, where was it? Someone else has asked another question. It's a very important one. It's not, and it's for some reason. Oh, it is here. Right. I'll ask. What I've just said comes on to another question, which I'm going to address later on. Okay. Next question. The Roswell Trilogy is an alternative history novel. Was the writing process different compared to your other two books, and did you face any challenges writing in this genre? Yes, I did. Firstly, it is different to the other two, although some people say that Rockhall is a bit like that. Rockhall is slightly surreal. It has a slightly surreal element to it, as if it's not quite a part of our real world. It might not be quite. And I understand that, although it's not technically, it is. It's within our world. It's within the normal world, but it is slightly alternate and slightly surreal. Evans Land, of course, I've described it as a kind of futuristic book, although Evans Land, Evans Land is out of print now, and I haven't managed to upload it at all lately. To be honest, it's not something I'm terribly proud of anymore. I liked it when it came out. I'm quite embarrassed by it now, quite frankly. And I couldn't write it now. I really couldn't write it now. I was a very different person when I wrote Evans Land, which was in the late 90s. The challenges of writing the Roswell trilogy were, firstly, in terms of the setting. I mean, it starts, of course, in Roswell, a place I've never been to. I'm hoping to go there. I'm sort of trying to make plans to pay the place a visit at some point. I think I should do that. Ideally, I should have gone before I wrote the books, but old pictures of Roswell and things like that, and of course, knowing what I did about the Roswell incident. The last question here: what are the key themes or messages you'd like readers to take away from the Roswell trilogy? I think that the key theme is that a lot of the way the world is as a result of certain very small, even sometimes superficial eventualities, including, well, what Stephen Bassett calls the truth embargo. I think that's the key message. The truth. If you took away some of these things that we talk about, we nutcases, we tinfoil hat wearing loonies. If you just change things within our vision, rather than laughing at us and calling us names, just try changing something with other things we talk about and just see what happens. It's almost like a thought experiment, just okay. If you think the truth embargo is just rubbish, just try take it away and see how things go. Run history again, see if it's any different. And of course, the answer is it's completely different. There's some things are the same, obviously, not everything. Most things are completely transformed. By the end of the trilogy. Next question. This is a second set of questions from Sophie, the Porter's Poet. All right. What inspired you to write the first book of the trilogy? Oh, well, that I referred to the answer I gave about Steve Bassett. I think literally, I didn't even think about it. It's not something that I came up with on my own. It was literally listening to Steve Bassett doing this interview. He did this interview, and he said, wouldn't it be fun to write an alternate history book? Going back to the Roswell incident and changing it so we didn't get the truth embargo. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't it be interesting to just rewrite the history of the 20th century in your imagination with a different, with just changing that, taking away the truth embargo, and instantly, just like that, I could do that. And if I'd never heard Steve say those words, I wonder if the idea would have ever come to me. Possibly it wouldn't, and I would never have written these books. So I'm indebted to Steve Bassett for that. I really am. If you want to if you want to hear more of Steve Bassett, I did an interview with him. It's on the not the last UFO disclosure video, but the one before. So check that out. Next question. When did you first consider yourself a writer? Oh, a very long time ago. It was really, I really realized I had a taste for writing stories, I think, when I was in primary school. I was literally in primary school. I started, it really had this idea of writing, writing stories. Number 3. Did you encounter writer's block when writing the trilogy? If so, how did you handle it? Oh, I did. Like I said, I hit what I call the walls. And the answer, the way I get through it, I mean, I sat there for a while thinking, where am I going to take this story now? This first one, really. I mean, the second and third one, Revealed and Redeemed, it wasn't a problem. It was literally with Rising only that I had this problem. And I thought, where the hell am I going to take this story? Where am I going to take it? How am I going to carry on with this story? And I was like, I know, I'll just stop thinking about it. Just see what happens. I'll just think about it like that. And of course, I went away, and literally, I didn't do anything for a couple of weeks, and then the solution just came to me. It was very interesting. I did chart some of this, actually. If you go to the Ben's Bookcase blog, I did sort of keep a little bit of a writer's diary. Not officially, didn't do an entry every day, but there's a couple of articles in there which I posted halfway through my writing process for Rising, and I do give you a little idea about what that's like. Next question. What, in your opinion, are the most important elements of good writing? I think having a style of your own, that is writing the way you want to write in your way, which comes from you in a way that it can't come from anyone else. And you just know, you could just tell when someone has written like that. I mean, there's certain, you don't have to be a writer to do this. You could just be a reader, but you'll sometimes, if you read regularly, you'll read just one paragraph, and you'll say, I know who wrote that. That I think is the most important thing. Developing your style the way you fit into it. Next question. What comes first, the plot or characters? Is this like a chicken and egg situation? No, the answer is usually the characters. Although, of course, I have an idea for a plot, but then, as I said earlier, I don't plan these things. I don't really plan the story in advance. I find out that the simple interaction of a basic plot to begin the story and a character, even or characters, is enough to keep it going. For example, in the first scene of Rising, which you can actually read that for free as well if you want. In fact, the first there's a sample chapter for all 3 books on Ben's Bookcase blog, so you can read those. And it's just like they're just the ingredients. The first scene, you have Klein, you have the setting Roswell, 1947, and then Flying Buffalo, and then of course he goes into the newspaper office. Now, for those of you who want to know, Klein Quilly. When I came up with the idea of the character, I realized immediately when I was going to start it at the Roswell incident, he would be the journalist who wrote the famous article, the headline article, July the 8th, 1947, RAAF captures flying disc. He was the journalist who wrote that article. Now, I don't know. He wasn't, of course, in real life. I don't know who wrote that in real life. There's probably records at the Roswell Daily Record about that, but it was Klein who wrote it in this story. That was enough just to get it going. Next question. How did you come up with the titles of the books in the... That's a bit abstract. I need something a bit more tangible and a bit more specific to identify the book and the subject matter, perhaps for someone who comes across it for the first time. And I thought, well, what better than having something based around the name of Roswell? And so I chose Roswell. Now, of course, all 3 of the trilogy are called Roswell, even though Roswell only comes up at the beginning and the end of the story. But Roswell is so important. The Roswell incident is the transformation from our history to the alternative history takes place in Roswell at the start of the story, because the story starts. What starts the alternate timeline, so to speak, is the fact that that article was published, and then the second article, the famous General Ramey empties Roswell saucer, the cover-up, in other words, the truth embargo, as Steve Bassett calls it, didn't happen. That's the turning point. That's what changes everything. And I thought, well, I have to stick with that. So I came up with Roswell Rising. Roswell revealed, I suppose revealed would be simply because it's revelation is another word for disclosure. Redeemed would be more a kind of healing process. It's more about redemption can mean taking back something that belongs to you that's been stolen, for example. To redeem, you redeem your lost wallet from the police, for example, if it's been when they catch the thief. But it also means to redeem yourself means, when in a reflexive way, means to heal yourself, to improve yourself, to undo a wrong that you committed, to make right a wrong. And that, I think, was a very, very good summary of Roswell Redeemed, because Roswell Redeemed is essentially about that healing process we have to go through in the post-disclosure world. As you'll know, if you see the trailers, it's about, well, we're in the post-disclosure world now. The Illuminati have fallen. But freedom is difficult to do with it. Can we cope with freedom? Can we deal with this new Promethean age we've entered? Or will we destroy ourselves? Describe a typical writing day. Do you have a particular routine? That's the next question. I mean, I think every writer gets asked this, and the answer is, I just fit it in with everything else I'm doing, because, in fact, it's quite amazing I managed to achieve so much, considering that I have a Panwo TV and a Panwo Voice and a Panwo Radio to do, and of course, I work full time like most people do. So that's that, I think, is one of the. So I don't have a typical writing day. I mean, certainly when I was getting towards the end of the books, I focused very much on them, and I actually stopped doing her Panwo TV for a month or so. Number 8. What's the most difficult part about writing the trilogy? There wasn't really a difficult part to it, because I think, oh, I'm getting dry on. Because I never intended it to be a trilogy. Rising, I was actually quite close to the end of Rising before I thought to myself, well, why don't I just stop this at a certain point, round it off, end this particular story, and carry it on with the sequel. I was developing ideas for the sequel. So I didn't decide it was going to be a trilogy then. I wasn't certain it was going to be a sequel until about then. And then the same thing happened with Redeemed. In fact, I did consider simply ending it with Redeemed and not having, Revealed, Roswell Revealed, the second book. All right. The same thing happened with Roswell Revealed, the second book. I'd actually done quite a bit of work on that before I thought, well, shall I simply leave it there? And I thought, or could I possibly write another one? Could I possibly write another sequel and call this a trilogy? And I really didn't think I could at first, but then the idea grew on me as I was writing Revealed. And by the time I ended Revealed, I had made up my mind I was going to write a sequel to that, and it would be a trilogy. It'd be the Roswell Trilogy. Once I had this idea of Roswell Trilogy, it had a ring to it, and I liked it. I thought, yeah, let's have a nice 3 books. I imagined this box set. In fact, I haven't worked on that. I've got to do the box set, actually, which that's my next task, I think, is to create. Well, while I'm writing the Obscurati Chronicles, which is my new novel, I'm also going to have to maybe get a box set done so I can sell them as a box set, which would be nice. Next question. What would you say is your most interesting writing quirk? I think it is the fact that, well, it's something that doesn't really apply anymore, because I tend to do single drafts on a word processor. But when I used to do paper, I used to use paper. I used to actually write in the good old-fashioned way on paper. In fact, I did this for Roswell Rising. And the most interesting quirk is I have to have Rhino exercise books, and I have to have Bic Diamond pens. I have to have those particular things. I went all over the place looking for these. This is not uncommon among writers. We have certain almost superstitious parts of ourselves, rather like the footballer who always go out onto the pitch without his gloves. everything's just going to go under me. I'll never save a goal. So I'm a bit like that, I think. Next question: Would you like writing to be your full-time career? Probably not, because once you make it your full-time career, it becomes a lot more. Well, I mean, in a way, probably it would be good for me, because it would be an impetus. It would be an impetus to get me working quicker. But you have to deliver results. You have to you have financial constraints, which is like your income, for delivering specific results, and these could involve being pressured to do things you don't want to do. Whereas but it's not enough to live on, and perhaps it's probably better that way, simply because I don't have to answer to an editor. I don't have to deal. I won't lose my house and things like that. So probably I wouldn't like to be a full-time writer. Really, I really wouldn't. On a typical day, next question. On a typical day, how much time do you spend writing? I don't know if you could average it out, but it depends on the day and what else I'm doing. Because obviously now I'm doing this video. I'm not going to do any writing today, because I am doing this live stream, and then at 10 p.m. I'm on the Kev Baker show. So that's it for the rest of the evening, because Kev Baker finishes at midnight. I'm going to go to bed. So the answer is none today. But you see, I did actually do quite a bit on the weekend. Sunday in particular, I did a lot of work on Sunday on it. So it's basically so it depends on the day, I think, and what else I've got on. Next question. When you were writing emotionally charged scenes within the Roswell books, how did you get in the mood? It was actually, I just had to sit and think about it, really. There are some emotionally charged scenes, especially in Roswell Revealed. And some of them are quite upsetting. I found a couple of scenes really difficult to write, because they are similar to my own experiences, or they're based on my own thoughts and feelings about things. I didn't need to get in the mood, really. Next question. How much planning took place before you started writing the books of the trilogy? Not a lot. I mean, there was some. I mean, the moment I heard Steve Bassett's when I heard Steve Bassett, I immediately started making notes. In fact, I've got them here. Yeah, this is the first page of notes I wrote in this book. Yeah, it's and so I started that in 2015. I wrote that, and all this stuff I wrote in 2015, and most of it I didn't really. Most of what's on here actually didn't appear in the story. So I started writing notes straight away, and that, I think I heard the interview with Bassett was, when was it? Let's have a look. I want to get this. I want to pin this down. Let's have a look. Let's go to the Ben's Bookcase blog right now. Here we go. Oh no, that's not the one. Is it? No. Oh, I don't. Hang on. Try another search term. Oh, tricky. I might not be able to answer this question. Here we go. Yeah, Tuesday the 5th of May 2015. Yeah, Steve says this is it. This is the incident here. I wonder if I could play it. I wonder if I can play that scene. 1 hour 35. Hang on. It's still there. Let's have a look. Right, let's just see if I could play it. Let's have a look. Listen to this. Hope you can hear this. Can you hear Steve's voice? If you can't, let me know. All right. I assume you can hear. Earth Dog count. Okay. No one could hear it. Okay, I'll leave that. Okay, no one can hear it. Sorry, I thought you might be able to. But Steve at one point says to write a book in which Roswell ends up triggering disclosure in 1947 and describe the rest of the 20th century after that. I'm sure somebody will do it, but not me. Start writing notes. But it wasn't actually long until I got going. Everything happened very quickly after that, so it was quite easy. Next question. What was your favourite part and your least favourite part of the journey from putting pen to paper to getting the trilogy published? Oh, my favourite part, when Rising came out, that was brilliant. Rising being published. That was fantastic, because at the time I wasn't, that was sort of, yeah, I will I'll get that out and everything will be fine. I'll get that out and everything will be. I understand. Pages. I don't know. The Illuminati. That I think was great, and obviously the subsequent books were also actually really, really good. Getting the other books out were good too. Were really great. But all right, Hugh, could you save your questions for the? I've told you before, I'm not answering any questions in chat until after I finish the email ones. Okay. I've lost. I'm distracted now. So obviously, like getting the first book out was my favorite part, probably. The least favorite part. Oh man. I think it was probably. I don't know. I mean, you see, I was a bit. You see, I found out that Steve had read Rising. No, he didn't. I didn't send him a copy, and no, I didn't tell him, "Oh, here's the book, Steve. Here, read it. Let me know what you think." I did, because the thing is, I knew what the answer would be. Steve wrote. He's read the first one. I've heard through a third party that he read Roswell Rising, and he didn't like it, and I knew he wouldn't, because it's Steve and I have our disagreements, as you know, if you listen to the interviews I've done with him, the conversations I've had with him, and in a sense, this book is it's a written illustration of, or written description of, those very disagreements in many ways. It's almost a summary in that sense. So I knew Steve wouldn't like it, but I suppose there's a part of me that wanted him, because I do look up to the guy and I respect the guy. There's a part of me that wanted him to say, "Oh, nice one, Ben, really good." But of course, I knew from the very beginning, when I realized what the book was going to be, that wouldn't happen. But that wasn't my least favorite part. Probably when I got the writer's block and I didn't know how it was going to go. I think that was the worst bit. Also, published. This happened after, probably when I was in the middle of writing Revealed. But I found out that the Amazon page for my books had some very rude comments on there. And these were comments saying how awful the book was and how much they hated it and advising people not to buy it. So I had some very, very poor reviews. Now, there was about a dozen of these reviews, and they all came from two different people. I know who they were. I knew who they were, and I knew what they were doing. They were posting from different accounts to try and sabotage my livelihood. And I complained to Amazon, and unfortunately they haven't removed the comments. But luckily there were other good comments on there. That was unpleasant. That was a nasty. I thought I was extremely spiteful of the trolls to do that. Next question. What is the most surprising thing you've discovered while writing the trilogy? Probably. I think I got more out of it than I thought it was in terms of people's response. I'm really pleased, despite the trolls on Amazon. Some of the comments I've had are really good, and it really gelled with some people. in a ways, I think is better than it was better received than I thought it was going to be. I really do. I really thought that people within the UFO community might not be able to accept, but they have. Many people have, and I'm really pleased about it. That was my intention. I didn't think I'd have achieved it, but I think I have. Next question. You've written from various genres. Do you have a preference? Yes, it's probably this right now. I'd say it's probably this one. I mean, if you read, I've written 5 novels now, which are all a little bit different. There's 2 others apart from the Roswell Trilogy. And I've written a number of short stories on various different themes. I really do think the alternate history is my milieu. It really is my field. And indeed, this is why I am now. But right now, I'm really focused on this. Next question. Tell us about the process for coming up with the covers of the Roswell books. All right. Well, I knew it had to be something simple because I didn't know anyone who really designed a cover properly. I do now, actually. But someone Sophie knows, actually. But I bumped into someone called Annette Lemaire, and she said, when I told her what I was going to do, she's an artist. She immediately offered to create a cover image. Not the design for the cover, but the cover image. And she said when I came up with the ideas for the other 2 books, she then also produced images for those 2, plus a couple more. And she didn't want paying. She just give me a credit on the back cover. So I did. Which I'm really grateful for, because it's really great pictures that Annette has produced. And I'm really grateful for text like that. I decided to use a different kind of font for the title on all 3 of the books. So I use Arial on the second one, and then another one, I can't remember which one, on the other. I just say it's a simple, neat, elegant design with Annette's art, which I think is just perfect. I mean, I really like this cover. The covers of all of them I think are really good. Next question. Do you write listening to music? If so, what music inspired or accompanied your Roswell books? Yeah, I listened to several things, most especially in there with my earphones on like this, and I've got KLF Chill Out album playing in the background. The White Room is a bit too upbeat for writing to. You need something a bit mellower, and so that I think fitted perfectly. Next question. You're currently working on a spy novel. Is there anything about this book which you'd like to share with your readers? Certainly. Firstly, it is another alternate history story. It's an alternate history story which starts it's actually set. Well, it's partly set in an imaginary country in this world, but it's an imaginary country. Although other countries such as Britain, Russia, and other nations appear in it as well. And it begins in 1918, in the last year of World War I. And if you want to read more, let me post you a link. Next question. I'm going for an hour now. I can't go more than about 2.5 hours because of Kev Baker tonight. So thank you, Sophie the Ports Poet. Hold on. There's one more. There's one more. How many other plot ideas are you just waiting to be written? Apart from the Obscurati Chronicles, nothing really. I've had some vague ideas about doing a couple more alternate history stories, trying to push it back even further. History, I don't know. I've got some idea about writing something set in Atlantis that's completely imaginary, but that's going to have to wait. It's going to have to wait. If I live long enough, I will write those. So thank you, Sophie the Ports Poet, for those questions. Another one here, right? I have some questions. This is from someone else. Did any of the Roswell witnesses report missing time before, during, or after the Roswell crash? What instance of time then? All right. This is actually in the real world, not the story, because of course the answer in the story is no. The answer in the real life is I don't know. It's possible. I'm not certain. Number 2, if possible, could you elaborate on which, if any, telepathic, verbal, or written messages Roswell witnesses got from the Greys or other unusual things? I can't. Although there is a lady which I've talked about before. It's something separate, but basically it's a nurse who was at the hospital that day who did have a telepathic communication with an alien. Right. Dear Ben, this is another question now from someone else. Will the book be available in big letter print? I haven't finished the first chapter of the first one. All right. If you may have accidentally picked up one of the old secondhand of the first edition of Rising, which is it's in 8.9 print, which is far too small. As soon as I saw it, I realized I have to change it. So I brought out another edition in 9.8 size font, and that's the one we have now, which is much better now. Next question from someone else. You have some scathing critics of your books on Amazon. How do you react to this? Do you think it's affected your sales? The answer is I don't know. But I know that I have complained to Amazon about this because these are not real reviews. The person posting, or there's about 2 people doing it, I think, and it's the usual suspects, the trolls, Team Droid, etc. I've complained that this has been done. I mean, you can see when you read the reviews that these people have not actually read the book. They've read maybe the sample chapter and that's it. They're just doing this to try and sabotage my livelihood. Someone else says, how much profit do you make per book? Oh, right. It's actually about, the books cost $4.50 each from Ingram Spark because I'm a self-publisher. I use something called Ingram Spark. And because I'm a self-publisher, I don't have any more real overheads. This is the good thing about being a self-publisher. Your profit margin is much bigger, even if your gross profit is smaller. It's a thing. Like, of course, if you get a contract with a big publisher and it's widely spread, the thing about being a self-publisher is you don't have to deal with that. You get much more. You keep about 2/3 because you don't have all the discounts from the retailer. You don't have the discounts from the wholesaler. The publisher doesn't have to earn a living off you. They don't have all that expenditure. Question: will you ever write an autobiography? Ben Emlyn-Jones, My Life in the Woo Woo, or The Incredible Life and Times of Ben Emlyn-Jones? I might well do, actually, but it won't be a book. It'll be an article on the main Hapanwo blog. And I've got some ideas for that, and that might come out. All right, next question from someone else. Which Roswell book hit a couple of blocks, as I explained? Next question. Did anything in the books deviate from any of the David Icke's basic ideas? Oh, yes, loads. David doesn't really address UFOs in any particular detail. He mentions them a couple of times, but he doesn't address them in any particular detail. And there's many other ways as well. Now, if you've read the books, you'll know the lizards are there. Don't worry, the lizards come into it, but the reptilian overlords. But, the Saturn being home of the Illuminati, things like that didn't come into it at all. Right, next question. Are you able to live a lavish lifestyle on the proceedings of your fine books? Oh, well, I'm glad you think the books are fine. Thank you. The answer is no, although it does supplement my income. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not like I'm earning nothing. I'm earning something, and it helps. I get sales checks every so often from the printers. I get like a sales dividend, which is great. It's only they send you like every 3 months. They send you something. They send you what you sold, but that's really good, I think. Will there be more? Well, the same person says, will there be more in the Roswell Trilogy? No, that's finished. It's sad, actually. I mean, this doesn't mean I'll never write anything again set in the Roswell universe. I might, but the Roswell Trilogy itself is over, and it was very sad, actually. When I came to the end of it, I was very sad because it's like I've been living in this world, this world of my imagination, and it's been such a big part of my life that having to leave it it's very difficult. It's remarkable when you think that it's non-existent. It's something I just made up in my head. But I've got to say goodbye to the characters that have become like friends to me, even though they're just figments of my imagination. They're like imaginary friends, and I've got to say goodbye to them. And it was hard to do that. It was very upsetting. Next question: are any of the characters based on real life people? Yeah. Now this came up a bit earlier on, and I'm going to answer it. The answer is yes, and I can't tell you which ones or who they represent, the real people they represent, for legal reasons, basically. Make of that what you will. All right, now this is the question that the Crafty Nihilist posted in chat, which was so good I decided to make an exception. Why did you shove the grenade up her ass? Oh, right. The answer is because Sophie asked me earlier on who was my favorite character, and I said Flying Buffalo. And if someone asked me who is your least favorite character, who you really don't like, and the answer is the character this person is referring to. I won't say which one it is because that's a spoiler. You have to read the books to find out. But she's someone I despise so much that I won't say whether she's based on a real person or not for legal reasons. But she's someone this character I invented or partially invented. I won't say which. It was so horrible. And because I knew I couldn't let her live. I mean, I knew as soon as this character was created that she was going to die somewhere in the book, and she was going to die in a particularly horrible way. I'm not evil. I'm so evil. And in fact, like if you read when I read the book back to myself, and I just can hear myself. I read my own words of how I describe this character. You can looks everything about her as I've written it. You can sense the way I despise her so much, and so I decided to finish her off the way that the Crafty Nihilist describes, and I did it because I hate her so much, and I wanted her to have this particularly over the top ending. You'll find is that in James Bond, the bad guys often bow out the same way, don't they? There was the guy got blown up like a balloon and exploded, things like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through the chat, get rid of the trolls, and then I'll start answering your your questions. But I'm not going to answer any questions that are posted here now. I'm just going to get rid of trolls. Let's see. Hi Hugo, how are you? Hello Diego Rivera. Yes, how are you? Thanks for joining us. And Galaxian, Paul Armstrong, hello. Pat Riot, greetings. Steve Palmer, how do you do? And Dr. Jackie F. Johnson, greetings. Okay, where are we going now? Right. Earth Dog, hello. Hugo Rune, greetings. Right. Susan Hayward Tonkin, hello, how are you? Miles Lawler, greetings, hello. Johnny K, how are you? Okay, here we are. Right. Johnny K says, have you had any TV or film related interest in your books? No, I haven't. However, one of the guys who reviewed it's actually Steve Mera of the Phenomena magazine. In his review, he gave it the top marks, and he says it would make a great movie. I'm willing to negotiate rights if anyone's interested. I really am. Hugh Jarsol says, my internet keeps freezing. Reboot your router, maybe. Maybe it's your internet route, Hugh. I know that there's two people who've complained about this, but according to it looks fine to me. Maybe it's a problem at your end. I can't do that right now in the middle of a live stream, unfortunately. If it's really too bad for you, then just watch the recording. Mr. MT says, question: if spacecrafts crashed into a major city instead of Roswell, what do you think this world would look like now? Well, firstly, if you watch what is it? Oh, UFO came down in a largely populated area. That doesn't guarantee the cover-up would fail. It's possible that a cover-up could be successful. If I don't believe it, we don't know. It may not look specifically different, other than there would be this case to research. Some people would be talking about it, and tinfoil hat wearing UFO enthusiasts like myself would have something else to write about. 1994 Hardcore Raver says your internet's doing the same. It might be something to do with the weather. It could be, yeah. Okay. Hugh Jarsol says, you still haven't answered the question. Well, the reason I haven't answered turned human. He claims he's Mr. Nice Guy. Well, what do I make of him? I like Michael and his wife. Michael and Sarah are great people, and I've interviewed Michael a few times. And you say the fact that he's an ex-cop doesn't necessarily mean that he's some kind of monster. I mean, Albert Burgess is an ex-copper as well. I mean, as I said in my previous couple of videos, I think the anti-terrorist is a serving police officer, which is why he guards his anonymity. So my nose is itching again. Now, what do I make of him? I like the man. I like what he does. I'm interested in his talks. I've listened to some of his lectures. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and I've met him a few times. And I think he's a good. There's nothing I can do about it. My internet is working as far as I can see. It's working all right. I mean, let me just go to my own channel. I'll check it out on my own channel. Let's have a look. Yeah. All right. It's working fine at my Hugo. It's working fine where I am. There's nothing I can do about it, I'm afraid. If there's no symptoms on my own internet, I don't know what to do. Sorry. You could watch the recording if you like. That's all I can suggest. Steve Palmer. Hello, Steve. Ben, I've had the spinning buffering wheel since the start. Okay, I don't, Steve, I refer to the answer I just gave to Hugo. Hello, Claire. How are you? Cosmic Claire is in the house. No, Steve, I'm not saying, oh, it's not Ben, it's everyone else. I'm just saying this is how it looks. This is all I can only deal with it as I see it from my end. Okay. All I know is it's working fine here, as far as I can tell. Sorry about that. So, any more questions, anyone? If no one's got any, if anyone's got any more questions, if no one has, then I can finish early and then I can have more of a longer rest before I go on the Kev Baker show. That's all right, Claire. Cosmic Claire says, sorry I'm late. No problem, Claire. You can come in. I know that Steve-071 won't be here till about 9. So I wouldn't want to finish before then if necessary. Claire, yeah, Claire, by all means. The recording will be available for anyone who wants to see it. And Lime Specs, hello, how are you? Hugh says, okay, fair enough. Gabe, have you ever seen a UFO? Hugh, I've seen it probably about a dozen times. I've seen things in the sky I can't explain. That is, objects in the sky I cannot identify. By definitions, those are UFOs, unidentified flying objects. This does not mean every single one of them is a spacecraft from the planet X. It doesn't. However, there's about three times I think I've seen things that I literally defy explanation. One of them was the event I saw in Oxford in 2008, which I've done a video about that. Another is the event I saw with Tony Topping in 2007. This is where the lights that he basically showed me in 2007 on St. Anne's Beach. The third is 3 events I really would say defy explanation. They were clear. I could see them, and they didn't look really like anything I've ever heard about. 30RTR30 says, do you know about RH negative blood and aliens? I've heard that some people claim that this is extraterrestrial. It's part of extraterrestrial genetics. Some people claim that is. For example, they talk about how probably Henry VIII's one of Henry VIII's wives had it. I think it was Catherine of Aragon. She had it, which is why she kept having problems having babies. In the end, I think he had one surviving daughter who was he had 2 surviving daughters by the 2 women. One was Queen Mary, the other Queen Elizabeth. Miles Lawler says, is 2020 disclosure year? Well, Miles, I don't know. I mean, check that out. Cosmic Claire, if I asked a question, it probably would already have been asked at this stage of the show. Well, go ahead, Claire, anyway. If you want. Lime Spec says, well, I've got you, Ben. Not sure if it's been covered. What's with this LaRock business that Mumbling keeps going on about? Oh, right. Steve Mumbling he's demanding answers, which I haven't provided yet because I can't be bothered. It's to do with a strange place that I visited with Miles in my last basis video. We went to this place in the West Country, which appears to be some kind of concrete works that's flying the RAF flag. Now, Steve, I mean, I did a little bit of background research on that. I talked about it in the video. Steve accuses me of lying. He's saying that I've made stuff up. He often accuses me of that, and He's. This doesn't mean I have. I haven't asked him yet because I haven't looked at his entire case. I can't be bothered right now, quite frankly. At some point, I might do a reply to him, but it's going to have to wait for now because I've got other things to do, including this live stream. But he's good. What Steve is saying is he says that the LaRock, he's looked into the LaRock company himself, and he's now claiming that I'm lying about something or other. I haven't watched the video in detail, and I'll watch it at some point. Claire says, the universe is a lot more complicated than most people think. Yes, and as JBS Haldane says, it's more complicated than most people can think. Hugh says, yes, exactly. What do you make of Richard D. Hall? I've been to a few of his conferences over the years in Wales, etc. Do you? All right. Hugh, do you mean to carry that on? Because you sort of cut off in the middle there. But I'll answer your question. What do I make of Richard D. Hall? I think he's one of the best people in this business, actually. But generally, I think he's very good, and I do recommend going to his tours. I'm going to go to one of them. At least one, I think, would be the. At least one of them, I think, would be where I would go. That I would do that. Crafty Niles, question: how did you get all the info on submarines and ships, Ben? All right, it's basically research. It's something I've always had an interest in. I was in the Royal Navy for a short time, a long time ago. I got kicked out quite early on, but I've always had an interest in these sorts of things, the naval matters, and so a lot of it was stuff I already knew about and I could incorporate. But I did a lot of research as well. I'm sorry people are still getting buffering. I don't know why that is. Miles says half the question has been on buffering or buffing. As long as there's no questions on fluffing. Johnny K, do you think extraterrestrials are already living among us? Yes, Johnny, they are. And they are. Many of them are just ordinary people. I've met a few people I believe are not completely human. Yeah. Cosmic Claire says, I think it's more about interdimensional realities than actual physical aliens. I think it's about both, Claire. It's a mixture. I think when you talk about aliens and UFOs, we're categorizing maybe more than one phenomena sort of generically into one, which may be a technical error, a physical error, although it seems to work for practicality's sake from our point of view. Lime specs, all right. I remember from the basis video, I just wondered what the situation was. All right, lime specs. At some point, when I've got time, I will watch what Steve actually has to say about the LaRock thing, and I'll probably write a comments reply video. I mean, Steve and I have a kind of love-hate relationship, and even I say I'm never going to. I'm not going to do any more moon videos, right? The whole moon Apollo thing, I'm drawing a line under because I did 3 reply videos to him. He did 3 more. We just keep the debate going on forever, and there's no point. There's absolutely no point. So I'm not doing any more Apollo reply videos to Steve, but I will perhaps do. I'll do one to this LaRock thing at some point. I did another one recently to Steve, actually. I did one about Rua and I did one about the alien interview, which Steve made videos about these things and he made a complete cock up of them because they were really, really bad. Diego Rivera genius. Hello, Diego Rivera. British Bigfoot, Trump, Israel. Yeah, all right then. No, he's not saying that. He says, when will a Roswell erection be released? I think you'll have to check X Hamster for that, I think, Diego Rivera. I didn't know there was a video of that name. Hugo Rune says there are only 3 dimensions. All right, yeah. Oh, there are parallel universes, Hugo, I believe. Diego Rivera, coronavirus is illuminated. To Hapanmo Radio, I have covered the coronavirus there. I've also done programs with Caroline Stevens about the coronavirus. 30 RTR 30. Why do aliens come all this way to anally probe people? That's a good question. Well, they don't just do that, but it's a good question. And I don't know what the answer is. There's several theories. Some people say it's to do with harvesting DNA. Some people say they're alien scientists who are not the Jeremy Riss kind, another one, real alien scientists who are just interested in us the way we are in some species in the animal kingdom. Some people say it's to do with reproduction and things like that. But it's a good question, which I don't have an answer for. But they've been doing it for a very long time. I mean, these kinds of experiments go back to the prehistoric times, I believe. And they're still going on today. So I don't know. It's so you'll have to. Well, people do ask them sometimes, and they give questions, but it may be we can't comprehend this. Indeed, a ferret which is caught in a trap to be tagged by someone from the RSPCA probably doesn't realise why that's happening. They probably don't know what they don't probably don't understand. They probably couldn't understand, even if they could actually could speak human language. We still couldn't understand them, and they couldn't still understand us. And Wittgenstein should know what he's talking about because he was a hospital porter. Hugh Jarswell says, "Behold a Pale Horse." It's a good book by the late great Bill Cooper. Crafty says, "Did you have an imaginary friend like Brendan?" Yes, I did. I did. I had several actually over the years, but it wasn't like Boggin was in the story. It wasn't. They were really imaginary. However, the thing about imaginary friends is some people who report them actually. They do report actually having real contact with them. They said, no, this wasn't imaginary. Sometimes adults will come back and say, my imaginary friend was not imaginary. It was real. And indeed, of all people, Richard Dawkins has been writing about this. Diego Rivera says, will you write a trilogy on the English Bigfoot? Not a trilogy. No, I will not. And I won't write anything about that apart from maybe a couple of articles and maybe some videos like the one I've done. And because really this is the speciality of people like Andy McGrath, Deborah Hatswell, and other people who've been looking into this in more detail. So really my interviews with those people and with various other people will have to suffice, I think. Not Deborah. Unfortunately, Deborah and I are not on good terms at the moment. As you know, if you read the comment sections in some of the videos. But Andy, I'm actually broadcasting an interview with Andy McGrath this Thursday on Hapanmo Radio. Stuart Morris. Hello, Stuart. Welcome. You're missing all the good bits. Major problem. I'll try to address it on the next live stream or on the next video. Livebex says, when and what will part 2 of your spies video be about? All right. I'll probably go into maybe more detail of the Cambridge spies. That's something I've not made serious on. I'll probably go into more detail on the Cambridge spies. Maybe take a trip to Cambridge as part of that. But that's going to take a lot of research and a lot of planning, and I haven't had time to do that yet. And also, maybe I'll wait until it gets into spring and the weather's a bit better, Hugo Root says, no parallel universes. They are fiction. Are you sure, Hugo? Because, oh man, I'd probably have to do an entire video to get into this in detail with you. But so there's only like 3 dimensions of space, 1 of time, and that's it. So the whole thing about string theory and M theory is all wrong. Do you think that? Steve says, I think Mumbling's videos are rather good. It's what led me here. Oh, really, Steve? Oh, well, thank you very much. And Steve Mumbling, thanks for the free publicity. You're helping me out here. You know that? I'll tell you what, I've probably given him an equal number of viewers. I mean, I actually must say, I as I said, I have a kind of love-hate relationship with Steve. When I watch his videos, I sort of cringe and go, you fool. But, I just love putting him straight. I mean, I have such fun about it. That alien interview video, which he made with such confidence, it's pretty obvious. He probably only heard about it literally an hour or so before he made the video. And it was a very easy takedown because to expose him in that way. And it was annoying. I think I was annoyed with him because he he was so kind of like sure that I just found this alien interview thing. What a load of steaming pile that is. And of course it wasn't. He didn't know anything about it. Miles Lawler says 33 watching. Ah, yes. I am the widow's son. It's 32 now. Steve Mumbling's just stopped watching. Ironman Spartan. Hello, Iron Man. On Dettol bottles, it states it kills coronavirus. Oh, right. Well, that's all you need. See, forget the vaccine and the Tamiflu or Tammy Corona. Just get yourself some Dettol. Good old-fashioned stuff. That's it. Hugh says, if you want to see UFOs, go to Wales or the Welsh-English borders areas. Lots going on there. Yes. I'm very keen on Welsh incidents, as you know. If you've, I went to the Berwyn Mountains. I went to Penturch more recently. Yeah, definitely. Right. Hugo. I'm sure. You proved me wrong by showing me these parallel or other dimensions. Simple as that. Right, I can't right now, Hugo. I'll try. Maybe I'll do that another time. I can't at this moment, I'm afraid. Steve says, Ben, not all publicity is good. Crafty Nihilist said, oh, Crafty, I can't answer that for legal. Well, for the record, I'll just tell you it's a work of fiction. All the characters are imaginary, and any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. But off the record, I will tell you, some of the characters, although they don't represent exactly real people, some of them are very closely based on real people. Some of them are, well, some of them are real people. I mean, to be honest, for example, there's, you'll know if you read them that some true people exist, and they are characters in the story. But this is something different. What Crafty Nihilist talks about is something different. 30 RTR30 says, book Bloodline of the Gods say RH negatives are more likely to be abducted. Yeah, I heard about that. Bloodline of the Gods, I've not read that, but I've heard of it, and I think that's actually true. I mean, there's something connected to RH negative and the aliens, and there's, yeah. I mean, who talked about that? The blood groups of people who are abducted. Yeah. Videos from the underground. Greetings. Miles Lawless says, Ben, how well is Roswell known among the general public? Do you do research on your potential audience? Well, Roswell is one of these things that has gone mainstream. Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which is the final Indiana Jones movie. The Roswell incident comes up in that. It comes up in The Simpsons. It's mentioned at certain times. And although the people have heard about it without knowing about the details of it, they just know certain things about it. Well, I think it's a good story without actually believing it's true. But how it's known about is quite a lot. I mean, I think this is why one of the reasons I chose the word Roswell in the title rather than Aurora, the working title. Because for that reason, because it would make it more identifiable in terms of its subject matter. I mean, I know people who want to read it, and they turn up at conferences like I do, But there are, I'm sure there must be readers outside the UFO community. I mean, if you put into if you go to a browser and you just clear your cookies, because most of you are nutters like me, so you just don't. So make sure you clear your cookies or use a new browser or something. But just put in books about Roswell, and mine come up. Mine will come up within the first 10 or 12 are there, which is good. It means that people who are just looking for books about Roswell will come up with my books, which is great. Diego Rivera says, where is it? Hang on. What's your conclusion about Roswell? Aliens. Yep. Basically, my conclusion is basically cover stories put in place, and this was suppressed. This information was suppressed, and it remains suppressed to this day. That's it in a nutshell. I know there's all kinds of other ideas. I've studied them all. I've looked at them all. I'm perfectly interested in all manner of theories connected to the Roswell incident. Crafty, I'm sorry you're getting this as well, Crafty Nihilist. I don't know why that is. It's Hugo says, do a program showing me any of these other dimensions or parallel universes by anyone in history. Simple for you, I believe. Well, Hugo, yeah, I could do that. And indeed, well, you know that the large things like that. But maybe, Hugo, that's a good idea for something to get into on another video, Nothing as it seems says, spring is already here, 21 kilometers north of the Golden Gate, 24 Celsius. Oh, yeah, that's... Do you live in that area, California, nothing? Because like Gareth from Mindset, he lives there too, and it's much warmer than it is here, yeah. But then they all got together and they created M theory. Do you know about M theory? Hugh says, how come Joe Rogan, David Icke, Benj, Emlyn-Jones, etc., haven't been bumped off yet if they're a threat to the MI6, CIA, Mossad, etc.? Well, because I think there's several answers to that, and it's a long story, but really, if anything happened to us, what do you think would go? What would the result be? What would be the result in the minds of people who have been looking into what we've been saying? What do you think it would do to the sales of my books? You know very well that when an author dies, the sales of the books go through the roof every time. What do you think it would do? Look at how many more people know about Dean Warwick now. They obviously, it must have been a bit of a dilemma when they took him out, because they must have realised that killing him went down again till the 70s. I mean, the drop between 40s and 70s was when you got like this idea about global cooling and the new ice age. And they were writing all these horror stories. Remember, there were books like The Population Bomb and, you know, Siberia, Britain and things like that. And everyone was terrified of us freezing to death. And all these poor little kids were sitting back thinking, you know, maybe we should just have a little bit of a discussion before we start scaring the little kids again, shall we? No, it's global warming now. You're all going to die in 15 years because you're going to get too hot. Oh, that was awful, wasn't it? Yeah. Steve says, Claire, you misunderstand global warming. Well, Steve, if you want a discussion about climate change, I've done videos about that. Peaceful Warrior. Hello, Peaceful Warrior. Got to scoot off, big guy. The man keeps doing your stuff. Salute. Thanks, Peaceful Warrior. You take care, my friend. Thanks for coming along. From the underground, California has fires and earthquakes. Oregon and Washington is more like England. Yeah, from what I gather, yes, it is. I mean, I've looked at the videos by about Dr. Jonathan Reed, and it seems to be that's near Seattle, and it seems to be very like Britain. That California is hot. I know from the people I know live there. I've never been there, but I know I know the area from what they've said. Hugo Roon said, M theory is a theory too, not a fact. That's right, Hugo. Yeah. Steve says, Ben, get a grip. You're not that well known. Well, I'm not as famous as Tom Cruise, you know, even though I'm better looking than him. Yes, I am. But I'm still sort of like quite well known, you know. I think I'm as well known as I need to be. Dangerous Davis, hello. Yeah, Claire, it's not global warming, it's climate change. TM, yes. That's don't forget to get to before you use that term. You have to get right, because the IPCC takes a discount. Yeah, you have to pay them to use that term. Phantom Prophet, that's a good name. Hello. Right, I don't know what that is, Phantom. Sorry. Yeah, Hugh, maybe. I don't know why that is. I can't help you with that, I'm afraid. Hugo says, I'm a retired telecoms engineer, and I feel certain the buffering problems is your end. Close down now so you can reboot the router before your next show with Baker. Well, okay, I'll do that before I do. I will sort that out before I go on Kev Baker's show, Hugo. And if there's any problems, I'll sort that out. And I appreciate your input there, being an expert in that sort of thing. Dangerous Davis, any new info regarding the Penturk incident? Well, do you follow Gary Jones or Kaz Clark on Facebook? They're publishing a lot of stuff. I've done a video. I did a video last year about it. Hopefully there'll be more details soon. There's been another. In my last video, I talk about how I spoke to a new witness. 30 RTR 30. You can get one free book on Audible and charge it as much as you want. It's full of books you'd like. All legit. Hugh, legit. In a word. I've done some videos on Bob Lazar. Check those out. Nothing says the suspicious observer, Maverick Star, and the like are under threat of being bumped off YouTube for being in denial of the carbon hoax. Yeah. YouTube have actually said that among the various things they want to make, verboten is opinions that run contrary to the scientific consensus. That's one of the things they're going to target. Well, which is basically, let's face it, it's everything I talk about, isn't it? Because what's the scientific consensus on the subjects I cover? Climate change is going to kill us all. UFOs are just swamp gas. Do it now, for God's sake, because if I disappear from YouTube, that's where I'll be. David Schultz, you off, mate. See you, David. Have a nice day. Take it easy. I know it's earlier where you are. Crafty says, thank you, Crafty. I have 7,000 subscribers now, but I don't want to specialize because I'm a jack of all trades, because everything covers everything. You know what I mean? All these things are connected. Video says there are UFO conferences in San Francisco soon. Get invited to conferences like that. You'll be more well known. I'm hoping to go to one soon. Videos. I want to go to the Roswell Festival if possible. If not this year, maybe next year. But if someone wants me to speak, I'll be glad to do a talk there. I mean, I've already spoken in Denmark, so I'm already an international speaker. Yeah. Hugh says there must be retired higher ups, retired, like the pilots at the Nimitz, you know, Underwood, Fravor, those people, they're speaking out now. Frillonora, hello Frillon. You know, if you want to suggest me, recommend me, you know, I'll be happy to speak there. I'd love to go. Hugh says, Richard Dolan, what do you make of him? I really like Richard Dolan. I think he's brilliant. I've met the guy a couple of times. He's probably not someone I could like get on with personally over a long period of time. But you know, he's all right in small doses, to like in a social setting. As far as his information, his videos, his talks, absolutely top notch, brilliant. I mean, he makes mistakes too, just like Richard D. Hall, but great guy, very, very. I didn't know him back then. I mean, he was. I was a little kid, and he was like 20 something, so I didn't know him. But he did a module on UFOs, and he thought it'd just be like a couple of weeks doing this module on UFOs as part of his course, and it changed his life. He read Timothy Good's Above Top Secret, and he said, "That's it." He was hooked, and I know exactly. And since then, that's been his whole raison d'etre. And I really think, you know, good for him, because he could have done a lot different. I mean, many people have come across the information he's come across, and they've walked away from it because they think it's just stupid, you know. But he didn't. Limespec says, I'm just going to leave a quick book recommendation on spies, as I know you've read a few. MI6, The Life and Death of the British Secret Service by Gordon Correa. It's very good. Hey, thanks. Limesticks, thank you very much. I'll check that out. Because you see, the reason I'm into spies at the moment is because of the Obscurati Chronicles. Because the Obscurati Chronicles is going to have the element of espionage in it. It's going to be partly a spy story. So that's why I'm so interested in spies at the moment. I have been now for a while. I mean, I was going to put this element into the Roswell Trilogy. The character Julian, I originally intended to be a spy, but pretty soon I realized that he didn't have the temperament for it, and I had to change his role. So I was already searching espionage when I was writing the Roswell Trilogy from the MOD that shows Nick Pope was only in a junior role at the UFO department. Oh, Nick Pope, I'm sure Nick Pope he's a bit of a publicity hound, you know, and he likes to, you know, what is it called? Britain's Fox Mulder. I don't think that's what he called himself. I think someone else called him that, but he's been quite happy to take that label on. But he was I think he reached the chief executive officer level of the civil service, and I don't know what level that is, but he claims it was the equivalent of a major in the army. I don't know if that's, in which case, of course, he has many superiors, so he wasn't like a general, was he? But I'm interested in reading these documents. I mean, my own sighting would be in there somewhere, because I did report one of my sightings to the MOD. But of course, these are like confidential files. They're not top secret. They're not, to quote Nick Pope, the saucer in the hangar. They're just kind of you know, man walking his dog on Cannock Chase, saw a light in the sky kind of thing. It's worth reading through them. In fact, Nick did put together a highlights file, which with all the best ones in, by his opinion, and I generally stuck to that one because there's so many. There's so many there. Villanor says, "I bet he was just making the tea." I think he did more than that. Diego Rivera says, "Planet X is a brown dwarf." Yeah, Planet X is, well, it can't be seen, can it? No one's seen it, but it has a gravitational field. So it may be something like that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, that. Bex, yeah. Oh, do you mean the book about the MI6? I'll check that out, yeah. Crafty Nihilist says, I was pointing out that more than 30 people know him. We are a nice group of people here. Why not just be nice? Lol. Of course, yeah. It's always, like I said, I'll get rid of any trolls, Crafty, definitely. Hugh says, I'm starting to think my net is hacked. Oh, Hugh, I'm sorry, I really am. I hope you get it sorted. It was 7,000 a little while ago. I may have gone down a bit. I may have lost a few. What is it now? I don't know. I didn't keep a view at anyway. Right. Hey guys, what I'm going to do now, if you just hold the line, I'm going to nip out for a moment. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, so don't go anywhere. I will return shortly. Oh, I mute my mic. All right, I'm back now. Where are we now? Nathaniel Corthog, that's a good name, says Roswell psyop. What do you mean by that, Nathaniel? Vrillon, I've got, yeah, I mean, I have my heating broke down. I've got my heating on again, so it's all right indoors for shorts. But yeah, I'm now. I had to wear my jacket on the other day. Miles Lawless says, I spy might lie something beginning with DP. Well, a few things, DP, but what do you mean, Miles? Okay. Damp patch. Oh, what? What are you talking about? Nihilist Lives Matters. Hello. It's slang for a truther. Twoofer is a truther, isn't it? One deal out little. Diego versus Ben reads his own. Hugo says, I go to the kitchen for 2 minutes, and on my return, Ben's been abducted. Hey, did you come in and you saw it empty and you thought the aliens had got me? I'm sorry to worry you, mate. I really am. Villanora says, the flat earth bloke was on this morning. Mark Sargent, Philip Schofield was taking the piss out of him. Oh, was it? Mark Sargent was on this morning. Oh, my God. Was he? Oh, man. Yeah, I've got to see that. I really do. I mean, everyone's been laughing at Philip Schofield the last few days. Well, it's a chance to laugh about somebody else. I think would be good. Stephen, and it's actually means a conspiracy theorist, usually about 9/11, but it could be about other things as well. And it's sort of like it's like a childlike adaptation of the pronunciation of truther. So that's what that's about. Who claims to be part of the truth movement? Oh. Where are we now? Villain Aura. I was laughing my ass off, Ben. Oh, what ad for Villain? Hugh says, Bill and Kerry Cassidy. What do you make of them? Sorry, I repeat, but can't I hear you when it's buffers? Yeah, Hugh. I'm so, Bill Ryan. I don't know. I've never met him. Although I do subscribe to Project Avalon. I've looked at the stuff he did. Kerry Cassidy, I've been to her conference a few times, and I've been on her show a few times. If you watch regularly, I've been on 4 or 5 times. She's had me on her show, and I like what she does. And like all the other names that have been dropped this evening, she makes mistakes. She gets some things wrong. I think she's decent. She is fundamentally sincere, and I'm looking forward to her conference in June because she's having a conference at Watford, so that'll be good. Diego Rivera, will Schofield become trans? This Philip Schofield stuff, I mean, it's a bit. Oh, I don't know what to make of it. It's basically, I don't care about his private life. I really don't, and I can't help feeling a bit suspicious of this. He's been married for 27 years. He announces on TV he's gay. I do hope he told his wife first. I think he owes her an explanation before he goes on TV and starts talking about it. It would be a bit of a shock for her. She's like making the evening meal. She's got the TV on, and she suddenly looks around and sees him and hears him say that. So presumably he told her first. I hope he did. But there's a cynical side of me that thinks Philip Schofield is just trying to relaunch his career. This is a way of getting him tension. I can't help thinking that. Philip Schofield is so courageous coming out. What with it being the 1950s, and yeah, I know what you mean, nihilist. He's coming out in an era. He's basically, if he is homosexual, then he's living in an era when it's, of course, it's perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's trendy. So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't. He's not going to end up in jail like Oscar Wilde. However, it is to talk about your private life in public is difficult, and I think to myself, if he genuinely feels he has to say something for sincere reasons, then that does take courage. It takes courage when you're in the public eye. It takes courage to do that, and I don't wish him any ill. I hope he'll be all right. He's in jail. He can't. But his wife, Joanne, I know his wife, and she basically communicates with the outside world on his behalf, and she does talks and things like that. And I know her. She's a really nice lady. Hugh, Paul Hellier, think he's full of shit or genuine? He's genuine. Definitely. I mean, he's actually writing a book at the moment, which is pretty amazing considering he's 95 years old. He travels and does talks and things like that. A man like him has what reason has he got, considering he's a former government minister? What reason does he have to make anything up? What reason? I mean, he also talks about Dr. Julie Wood and things like that. I mean, why would he make this stuff up? How are we now? Just a moment. Lime Specs, you got to go. Know why he decided to talk about it or what's going on, really. I don't care, to be honest. I really don't care. No, perhaps it's a ruse to decline Holly's rampant sexual advances. God. Cosmic Claire says, it is irrelevant. No one cares whether someone is gay these days. He acted like he was afraid of the reaction. The only reaction he should be afraid of is of people finding it irrelevant. Claire, that probably is his biggest fear, that people just shrug and say, I don't give a damn. Miles says, I will forever see Gordon the Gopher in a different light. Videos from the Underground says, people's sexuality and private life is nobody's business except for virtue signaling activists taking advantage of victim status. Sick of it. Go back into the closet. Yeah, absolutely, my videos. I think the way that people's private lives has been politicized. Firstly, the sexual orientation, but also the trans thing. It's utterly sinister. And in fact, check out Cosmic Claire's channel because she's got some videos about that. Yeah. Hugh says, why would they hide the existence of ET? Why? Hugh, thereby hangs a tale. It's very important for the purposes of the New World Order, for various reasons, for us to believe the Earth is basically a little oasis in a cosmic desert. They want us to believe we're on our own. Firstly, for various psychological and cultural reasons, but also political, economic, historical, everything. The free energy issue, I think, is very important, and I've covered that in detail in the books. Please, honestly, to answer your effect of that, during the 3 years I was writing these books, right. Steve Palmer says, not really. They're a mixed up bunch who generally argue between themselves but react in the same way to anyone who questions them or even those they argue with. It is that base. Who are you talking about, Steve? Are you addressing somebody else? So apologies if I misunderstand. Cosmic Claire says, it's easier to control people who are ignorant and don't know what's going on. Yes, precisely. Crafty Nihilist. If I go to Steve Mumbling's site and say, get a grip, none of his followers will say anything to me. Oh, they will. Crafty. I've sometimes comment on Steve's videos, especially when I'm drunk. I just can't resist it. And there's a couple on there who, well, some of them are the Team Droid trolls. Some of them have made their own videos about me as well, I should point out. And they always dogpile me, and it doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm a big ugly ex-hospital porter. I can cope with it. Most of them are no different from Steve Palmer. Most of them are like quite robust, but they're not offensive. They're not what I would call inappropriate. But skeptics, I've done an entire video on skeptics. If you want to see it, in fact, there's two I recommend. One is my Skeptics 2018 video, which is like the big studio version, over 4 hours long. But if you want a slightly more concise version of of that subject, my most recent, I normally get about twice that number. I wonder if it's shadow banning or just maybe the subject matter that I'm talking about. I don't know. Nihilist No Lives Matter says, I remember when Mike Douglas came out as a sex addict. Welcome to the male gender, Mickey, and no one cares. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know who that is, actually, Nihilist, but Hugo Rune, Night Ben, all this buffering is getting too much. All right, you're off to listen to Nigel Farage. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed Nigel Farage. LBC, it's always really good. And I'm sorry you're not getting the correct. You're not getting a very good reception. Okay, but it appears to be for some people. It appears to be certain people and not others. Okay. Oh, Michael Douglas. Oh, I see. Right, you are Michael Douglas. Video says people need to remind you that no one knows everything. Keep an open mind. That's right. Videos. I do try to do that. Socrates said, the first step to wisdom is knowing how little you know. Just ask questions. Now, Michael Douglas is a sex addict. Well, I think if I was married to Catherine Zeta-Jones, I would probably be a sex addict too. But, if for some people it is a kind of, what's the word? It can be an affliction. And very often it's very often for things of promiscuity, like pathological promiscuity, is often connected to like a lack of parental love. Steve says, I bet they don't accuse you of being a shill government agent or other silly stuff. Oh, yes, they do, Steve. Yes, they do. I mean, you just watch my videos about the shill tribunal. Just watch those videos. These accusations, they're not just skeptics who are accused of this. We accuse ourselves. People in our community accuse it of ourselves. Hugh says, what do you make of the cattle mutilations? Well, that is very similar to the alien abductions in the sense there's not any real logic behind it. There's lots and lots of theories. People who say, oh, it's about genetic harvesting. It's about scientific examination, things like that. None of those make sense. If the aliens are gathering DNA or something, you've got DNA. At the same time, if this was some kind of massive government experiment to check radiation levels and stuff like this, and less easier ways of doing it, same like people say, but they need farm animals to do secret experiments. Well, firstly, if you want farm animals, it's much cheaper and easier simply to buy them from a farmer's market. When I was a hospital porter, I used to take sheep carcasses into my hospital and take them to the research areas of the hospital. Picking them up from the middle of the field by helicopter or something is, well, firstly, it's more difficult and more expensive than getting the people to find them and sort of sit around wondering what's going on and maybe work out what's going on. So it's not very secret, is it? The answer is I don't know what these animal mutilations are, Hugh, except that I know they affect all species, and sometimes, scariest of all, human bodies turned up with these injuries. I don't know, to be honest. I really don't, except it's real. It's actually happening. Nihilist Mars Matter. Quite profound from a former Brazilian footballer. Who's that? Pele? Okay. Oh, Socrates. No, I was yeah, let's talk about Socrates. Yeah. Steve says that's your community, not skeptics. No, skeptics don't. No, Steve, you don't understand. I didn't say skeptics accuse us of being government agents. Conspiracy theorists accuse skeptics of being government agents, but they also accuse other people within the conspiratorial community of being skeptic agents. I mean, the conspirasphere is absolutely riddled with infighting. It really is. And just watch my videos on the shield tribunals. Go on, just watch them. Where are we now? Hugh says they're definitely censoring the net. It's Storm Duncan. Is it Storm Duncan? Storm Kiara the other day, or CIA Ra, as someone pointed out to me. Hugh says South America seems to be a global hotspot. South America, Brazil in particular, seems to get a lot of the nastiest UFO cases, the one which involved all the most sinister, nastiest, scariest things. I don't know why that is. Okay. So, but South America, like everywhere else, gets its fair share of UFO sightings. Steve Palmer says that's what I said, Ben. It's you guys who throw around all the silly accusations. Well, when you say you guys, if you mean the conspirasphere, then yes, but that doesn't include me. So don't include me as part of you guys. If you check out the Shield Tribunal videos, you'll see that I speak out against ground baseless accusations of shillhood. I very carefully speak out against that. Nihilist Lives Matter says Storm Kiara is fucking with the internet. Well, Nihilist, yeah, it's Hugh says the ranch in the USA fake. Oh right, do you mean the Skinwalker? No, it's not fake. Skinwalker Ranch, unfortunately, a lot of the independent research didn't pick anything up, which is a shame. But there's enough reason. I mean, there's a documentary by Jeremy Corbell about that. I think there's something to Skinwalker, definitely. Did you see the thing with George Knapp and Colm Kelleher? Hugh says David Paulides. Yeah, David Paulides is the guy who's been tracking down missing people, because that includes like the human bodies that turn up. But David Paulides did the missing 411. It's just people who go wandering on their own in national parks and things in the United States end up disappearing. Some of them turn up later on, like that Canadian skier. I can't remember his name, but I did cover it on a previous video. He turned up like, what are your views on crop circles? Oh, very interesting. Well, I love crop circles. I've done some videos on them. A lot of them are like man-made, of course. They're made by guys with planks, but not all of them are. And I think it's what they mean. Again, it's hard to say what they mean, but I know they seem to have some positive message, because people go into them and they feel very positive at the end of them, when they come out, Vrillon says U.S. Army major hid debris of Roswell UFO crash in his water heater. Yes, I've not read that article in detail, but that's very interesting. There'd be some kind of there wouldn't be the article, would there? But I did find that very interesting. I didn't finish watching it, unfortunately. Nihilist Live Matter. Skinwalker sounds like a porn parody of Star Wars. Very good, Nihilist. Very good. I'd go with a team of people, but I wouldn't go on my own. No way, no. Hugh says, all right. Steve is having an argument with Crafty Nihilist. Now, yeah, I mean, it's true that what I just said about what you call twoofers doing these things, and I know skeptics don't do that, but Steve, to be fair, yeah, skeptics have their own problems when it comes to accusations. I mean, there's a lot of infighting in the skeptic movement, and I have covered that in my Skeptics 2018 video. But it's not of the same kind that we get in the conspirasphere. It's different. Hugh says, David Paulides blocked me on Facebook for asking awkward questions. Well, Hugh, what questions were you asking? And maybe he was a bit concerned about your name, because your name is like a bit of a trolley name. I'm not saying you're a troll, but what questions were you asking? 9 o'clock. All right, he blocked me for asking simple questions. Oh, right, really? What about the mutilations and things? Did he block you for asking those? Oh, it's a shame. Crafty says, I'm a twoofer, apparently, Ben, according to Mr. Palm. James Randi Forum and the original skeptics of the 9/11 ideas. In other words, believers in the official story of 9/11. They came up with that. Make of Steph Young. Paulides did block me, hence I can't trust him. Who's Steph Young, Hugh? And, well, I mean, I don't know why Paulides blocked you. I don't know what the conversation you had with him was. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to answer the questions that you answered. And if you ask them in the way that you, to me, as you have to him, you've asked politely, I don't see what the problem is. But I've not read Paulides' book, but I've seen it's said before that they get taken by Bigfoot. But maybe they are. I mean, from what I hear, Bigfoot is not an aggressive creature. It actually avoids human contact. But maybe they are taken by someone for some purpose or something. There are no international portals. Yeah. Niall says, this stream reminds me of Epstein's security camera footage. I think you'll find that massive gaps. I think you'll find that my stream has a fewer gaps than Epstein's security camera. I think you will find that. Miles says, on the subjects of skeptics, do you have any idea why Colin Snugg's family asked for the memorial film to be taken down? Miles, I know, I don't, and I wasn't. I think considering the circumstances, it wasn't really in a position to ask. I mean, I might re-upload it in maybe in a year or two. But I think under those circumstances, considering it was only for like 5 months or so since he died, it wasn't fair. It wasn't really appropriate to ask. I just did what they wanted. I still have the video stored, and I may upload it again, but I'll leave it for a year or two. Hugh, I'm not rebooting my router. I'm sorry. I don't have time. It'll have to. My internet really wasn't working. I would, but I don't believe it's just me. Diego Rivera says, volcanoes on Venus. The whole surface is no older than a few million years. That means something catastrophic happened to Venus in recent history. That's right, Diego Rivera. I saw that's a big mystery, that, about Venus. And it fits in with the Velikovsky stuff, about Venus being a new planet that came out of Jupiter or something, Stephen Crafty having a argument, and I mean, okay. I'll let you guys get on with it. I mean, you can block. Don't forget, there's a block function on YouTube if it gets too much. All right. If someone says anything that's really rude, I will get rid of them. Up in Yorkshire with Storm Ciara. Yeah, it really has been. It's been bad, isn't it? Hugh, if I need to reboot for KBS, I'll reboot. Okay. Neil says, do you think there is intelligent design in living things, or is it all non-intelligence chance chemistry? I do, Neil. I actually am very interested in that. And I just did a video. Well, actually, I did it last year called, what was it? It was a lecture by a guy. What's his name? One of Richard Dawkins' sort of nemesises, who did he's an Oxford professor, and he was talking about this, and I was talking about various things, like there's certain dinosaurs which seem to become bird-like, and they have like wings which flap, and they have like they have reptilian mouths, and they don't have wishbones, and all of a sudden you get creatures with beaks and wishbones that just appear. And it's the lack of transitional fossils. I mean, it's like punctuated equilibrium. I was talking about this when I interviewed Claire, actually, Cosmic Claire, on her Panwo Radio. And it doesn't. I mean, even Charles Darwin admitted that there were problems with his theory. He said that his theory of evolution was not complete, and there were some mysteries he hadn't solved. He called it the missing link. And so, as intelligently he was, and how he changed things, Darwin didn't complete his work, and so it's perfectly acceptable, I think, for someone to say, "Well, maybe there's other ideas here." Hello, Denise. How are you? Thanks for joining us. Cosmic Claire says people need to watch Geocosmic Rex if they're interested in the hidden history of the solar system. Oh, right. Sounds interesting. No, I'm not going to block you, Hugh. Don't worry. I won't. 30RT30. What are your views on the Nazca lines? They're incredible constructions, and they were not. The thing is about the Nazca lines is people didn't even really realize what they were until the 20th century, when after the invention of aircraft, when people started flying over them. The people who built them could never actually appreciate them in fully. They built them. They literally built them for someone who's looking down from very high up above, which means they must have understood. They had some idea there was something up there looking down, because they themselves couldn't see them. Whether these were sky gods or whether they were aliens, I'm not sure. Nihilist says, no such thing as intelligent design. No intelligence will put the fun fair next door to the sewer. Oh, there's all kinds. Yeah, you think to yourself, well, without going into details, I sometimes look at my own body or I look at other people's, and I think, yeah, you're not going to win any design awards for that, you know. Cosmic Claire. Velikovsky had some interesting stuff on the catastrophic changes on Earth, but was over-speculative on the basis of too little evidence being known at the time with his planetary motions. Perhaps so, Claire. I mean, I've not looked into it in detail. However, there has to be some reasons. There has to be a reason why Venus is in the position it's in. There has to be some kind of, the fact that its surface is new, and it seems to have been cast almost like in a single moment or a single piece. So it's very different to the surfaces of Earth and to Mars. Miles says, new name for her Panwo, Paige the Oracle. Oh, Miles, are you really that old? Goodness me. Who remembers with the serpent back in the old days? Why are there monuments, statues, and fairy tales of the serpent globally? Good question, Hugh. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be universal across the world, isn't it? Yeah. Nothing says Geocosmic Rex is brilliant, but Carlson poo-poos Velikovsky. I don't know enough about the subject, I'm afraid, but yeah. Yeah, Neil. It's the whole thing about intelligent design. Really good. But watch my film of the guy. What's his name? Oh, it'll come to me in a minute. But he's one of Dawkins. He's one of the guys who disagrees with Dawkins and does debates about Dawkins. Lennox, Professor Lennox. What's his name? Lennox, guy from Northern Ireland. I went to one of his talks at the town hall, and I did like a reportage about it. Diego Rivera says Venus might be a captured planet. Now that could be if it came from outside the solar system. Yeah. Claire says the surface of Venus is very interesting, but its position in the solar system fits the mathematical distribution calculated by Kepler and Copernicus and others. Oh, right, yeah, because there's something. I think it's the phi proportions, isn't it? The distance between Venus and the Sun, Earth and the Sun, and Mars and the Sun. It's like the golden ratio, isn't it? Something like that. Hugh, how old were you when you became aware of UFOs? I was quite young, Hugh. There was a TV show called Lighter Hearted. It's a light-hearted kind of thing. And it's about these Project Blue Book scientists who go around questioning UFO witnesses. And sometimes they are it turns out that they've just made a hoax. Sometimes they made a mistake, and sometimes there is something really extraterrestrial involved. But it's a really interesting series. But it's not conspiratorial. It's not like Project Blue Book. If you watch my reviews of Project Blue Book, I go into detail. Project Blue Book has come out, and I've got the first one. I'm looking for ways of getting the other two, because I know that two more have been broadcast since. Where are we now? Oh. Saturn worship. The black box and things like that, like the Kaaba in Mecca, the black box the Jews have on their forehead, things like that. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Steve, hello. Steve 071 has made it. I'm right at the end. I've got to end in a minute, Steve. I'm sorry, but yeah, but I'm sorry you came in late. I know you wanted to get in earlier. It's unfortunately. Do you have a question about interest in space weather? All right, Miles. Yeah, it's because it's relevant to what happens on Earth. Let's just have a look. Diego versus Venus has a comet's tail, does it? And it's got a very thick atmosphere. Yeah, I want to see. I've got to watch. I will get rounds at some point to watching the Project Blue Books, the new Project Blue Book. Hugh says, yes, Ben. If Ben died suddenly, we'd all share his books like wildfire. Yes, and my website would become much more popular, things like that, yeah. Neil Desperandum says, yes, Lennox is great. And from a detailed scientific perspective, the world of a biochemist, James Tour, is brilliant. And he shows that life must be intelligently designed. I've not heard of him, Neil, but it's an interesting, rather like the climate change deniers, evil people, and they are literally expelled, as the name of the thing goes. It's really good because he got an interview with Dawkins, and he didn't. This guy Ben Stein, he got an interview with Dawkins, and he didn't tell him who it was. And at the end, Dawkins was furious, and he says, I can't believe they tricked me into taking part in this video. Oh, it's horrible. I wish if I'd known who they were, I'd have told them to go away. Hugh, if David Icke was legit, why is he still alive? Because Hugh, several reasons. I don't have time to go into all of them now, but one of them is if he had an unfortunate accident, what effect would that have on regarding what he's been talking about? No, Brexit was not planned. Check out my videos on that. Miles says it's like throwing the components of a Swiss watch up in the air, and falling as perfectly working watch. Yeah, that's right. 30. Thank you very much. I'm glad you've enjoyed yourself. 30 RTR 30. Yeah. Crafty knowledge. What are we talking about on Kev Baker? Well, we're talking about a few things, including strange signals from space and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. And even though I should be tired, I'm actually quite. I feel quite full of energy. Actually, I really do. I probably won't go straight to bed at the end. I really do. Oh, you're getting the buffering too, are you, Steve? I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but the comments box will be open at the end of this live stream. Right, guys, it's 25. It's 9:25, so it's time to say our goodbyes and do the Waltons thing. All right, but thank you very much, all of you. Steve, Steve, I'm quite happy to discuss things. I have an open comments box, and I do reply videos to Steve Mumbling. If you make videos, I'm quite happy to reply to yours. Just let me know. I'm quite him, but I went to see Professor Chris French the other day. You're welcome, Vrillon. Thank you for posting. Thank you, all of you. I'm going to end the stream in a minute. So, good night, Vrillon, Cosmic Claire, Miles, Crafty Nihilist, Edwardian ladies up there somewhere, and nothing. And take care, all of you. Night, Claire, and Neil Desperandum, and everyone else who's posted tonight in the chat box. Thank you very much. And don't forget the Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. Roswell Revealed, a world after disclosure. Roswell Redeemed, humanity after disclosure. Available at all good bookshops now, priced £10. Go in there. Kev Baker, 10 p.m. Hugh for Kev Baker. I never shop there again. But you can always be old-fashioned and traditional and just order them on Amazon or somewhere else and have them delivered to your door. And if I see you at any particular conference, I might have a stall, or even if I don't, come over and I'll sign it for you. And that'll be worth a lot of money in a few years. So, guys, I'm going to have a little half-hour break. You must be joking, Hugh. All right, guys, so I'm going to take a little half-hour break, and then check me out on the Kev Baker Show, 10 p.m. on Truth Frequency Radio and on YouTube. Good night, and God bless.